Was that big
Send it to me because I'm in town today and tomorrow, and then I'm going to visit. So if you send it to me, I'll be there. And then I got an invitation to Steve at Hilton of Las Americas for the ACC. Are you familiar with the lunch? It's going to be a lunch at the Hilton. It's going to be a lunch at the Hilton of Las Americas on April 16th. Me llegó una invitación, I have to register the code.
That's for our state.
Yes, that. Yeah, yeah, and
You gotta use the bar.
This one?
Or we can just leave it as it was.
No, it's good. It's better.
Testing. Okay, everyone, the moment has come. First of all, I want to thank everybody for being here. This wonderful support of the community, the broad-based spectrum of who we are is here tonight, and we have prepared a wonderful and important town hall for you on behalf of District 18, on behalf of District 8, LULAC. We're here to present information that's very important. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. We have representation of our cultural history. And as you can see, today is Cesar Chavez Day. And if you look closely at all these markers and hunger strikes, we always had Our Lady of Guadalupe as a protector, a symbol of love for his community. So Our Lady of Guadalupe is going to be with us today also. Cesar Chavez was a devout Catholic. I don't know if you know that.
Yes.
He was a Cursillista. So he had tremendous faith. And also, Our Lady of Guadalupe is a symbol of our cultural identity. So therefore, she's going to be with us today. Now, without further ado, we're going to have a symbol of our culture and the color guard. So at this time, can everyone please stand? Mr. Vega, could you ask him to come in? Standing for the presentation of Rose Together Color Guard.
Color guard, attention. Carry, color. Forward, march. Color guard, halt. Left, back. present arms.
Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order, arms. Right, face. Forward, march. Halt. Order, arms.
You may be seated. Thank you. Big round of applause to the JRTC color bar from Raul Izaguirre School. Give them a big round of applause. We're going to recognize a few folks before we get started, and then we're going to go into the panel discussion. But I do want to recommend our elected officials that are here tonight and some of the dignitaries. First of all, I'd like to recognize HEC Trustee, Mrs. Eva Loredo. Please stand. I'd also like to recognize former Councilwoman from the City of Houston, Gracie Sines. Could you please stand? And just walking in, our judge, Julia Maldonado, is back there. And I also want to recognize some really important dignitaries, folks that are really doing great work for our City of Houston, someone that's always been there for us, City Attorney Arturo Macia. Could you please stand? And of course, I cannot continue without introducing this person, perhaps one of the early trailblazers that, perhaps one of the reasons why we're here. Let me just recognize Mr. Johnny Mate. Could you please stand? There are more elected officials? Okay. Adrian Garcia, our commissioner, is on the phone. I think he wants to say a few words. Do we got him going? Or is he at 7? Okay. He'll join us at 7. Well, I'm going to turn it over to the other co-chairman, Baldomero Garza. I forgot to introduce myself. Anyway. I'm Dr. Sergio Lira. I'm the co-chair of LULAC Redistricting Committee. I'm president of LULAC Council 4967. This is my wonderful co-chair. We're a great tag team here.
Buenas tardes. Un poquito mejor, vamos. Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes.
Es un placer estar aquí con ustedes. Thank you so much for coming. I know this is very important for all of us, and I'm introducing, and again, we've already had the introduction. My name is Baldomero Garza. My friends call me Baldo. Other people call me different names. Let's go ahead. Our program manager, please rise as I call your name, Diane Olmos Guzman. Our technical specialist, Anthony Rios. Our marketing director, Isabel Castillo. And, we are a joint venture, so we have Al Maldonado from District 18, the district director. We also have Marta Diaz from District 18 as the district director here. Our committee members are Celia Valles, Maria Lira, Al Castillo, Gracie Sines, Agustin Pinedo, and Stacy Gonzalez. I believe that next we have a video that we're playing. Okay, so thank you so much for coming, and let's take it away. Oh,
This-
Pablo, I think. Oh, okay. Thirdly. Okay, so we've been at this, I think, since September. We put our heads together and we came up with the following. The LULAC Redistricting Task Force position on single-member districts only for Houston City Council. The city of Houston is at 2.3 million residents, making Houston, Texas, the fourth largest city in the nation, with half of the city's population being Hispanic. Houston's 45% Hispanic population contributes more than 85 billion annually to the city coffers. However, Hispanics are in the problematic situation of taxation without representation, a situation in which the government imposes taxes on its citizenry, but it does not have equal representation for city services, infrastructure, and the community and economic development opportunities. Therefore, LULAC supports single-member districts only for the City of Houston Council. Therefore, LULAC demands Latino representation on City Council for responsible representation with leaders who understand the needs and concerns of the Hispanic neighborhoods that they live in. Therefore, LULAC asserts that the Hispanic community elections to City Council can only elect Latino candidates from communities that are proportionate to its population and are represented as single-member districts as a matter of good government. Now, therefore, let it be known that LULAC supports and declares for the City of Houston Charter be amended for 16 single-member districts only as a method to reach parity, rightful representation in proportion to Houston's population. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Diane Olmos Guzman, and I'm a former HCC trustee, along with my colleague Yolanda Navarro Flores. We served at the same time on the HCC board and built this beautiful campus. We did.
Eran pleitos, pero ganamos.
Yeah, we won. We hung tough and got this done. Anyway, my role tonight is to introduce our moderator, Mr. Tony Diaz. Mr. Tony Diaz is a writer and an activist who galvanized Houston's Latino community with his quest for civil rights, education, and equal representation with the foundation of Nuestra Palabra in 1998. From 2002 to 2007, Diaz organized and hosted the Latino Book and Family Festival to ensure Latino authors' literary works were recognized and distributed throughout the community. Diaz's tireless efforts fueled the cause for Mexican American studies in Texas. And through his efforts, the Houston Endowment, Inc. awarded the advocates of a Latino Museum of Cultural and Visual Organization its first $1 million award. Tony also serves on the BIPOC board that received $12.5 million from the Arts Network Fund for Community Art in Houston. Tony Diaz is the literary curator of the Guadalupe Cultural Arts Center bookstore in San Antonio, Texas, and he hosts the Nuestra Palabra radio show. He is the author of the Aztec Love God book, the editor of the Mexican American Studies Toolkit, and he will be publishing a series of articles on community organization entitled The Tip of the Pyramid, Cultivating Community Cultural Capital. Help me welcome our moderator tonight, Mr. Tony Diaz.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the kind words. Thank you all for coming tonight. I do want to introduce our speakers, and then I kind of want to put this evening into context, because this is a big deal right now. And I want us to appreciate that, but more than anything, we have to tell the world that. And we brought to you this august group of speakers who I want to introduce quickly. Of course, any LULAC members in the house? Yeah! Well, we are convened here under the auspices of your national president and our national president. And I'm going to say one quick story about him, if I may. It's off script, Bill.
Just don't Will Smith on me, okay?
That's right. Well, this is like the Latino Oscars, but there'll be no slap. There's a lot of stars in the audience. I do want to say this about Domingo. I remember when I went to his alma mater, Texas Southern University Law School, ¿verdad? Which, if folks don't know, is a historically black college.
It is.
I showed up on campus and I was blown away by the number of Latinos in their law school. One of the highest percentage of Latinos in any law school in the state, maybe even the country. And I went to cheer on our president because he was making, and I don't want to embarrass him, but it was a really generous donation, as he's done for many organizations, back to his law school, in our community, to create more lawyers, and I can't wait till there's more and more lawyers like him. Please welcome our president, Domingo Garcia. Thank you. Let me introduce him all. If I may, chime in. He's a fair president, isn't he? I also want to introduce Yolanda Navarro Flores, Esquire. That's a fancy way to say lawyer. And again, off script, why? Because you are experiencing the ultimate Mexican-American history course. I didn't know that. I don't know if you knew that. Okay? And guess what? Guess what? When we're done, every day of school will be like this for our youth. Every day. You hear yourself clapping? You feel that energy? They're going to feel that day in, day out. They don't know. They don't know, but they're gonna. They're gonna. Yolanda's a history maker. She is the first Latina from Harris County elected to the state legislature, and you know that's an even bigger deal right now as they are redrawing those lines against us. A round of applause for the history she has made, por favor. And then, of course, to my right, from the prestigious Rice University, he's a professor of political science. He's been talking about this issue for a long time. It's great to see him on shows like What's Your Point, pero también en el barrio. Acá en segundo, ¿y sabes qué? Se avienta en español. Se avienta en español, ¿verdad? Please welcome Dr. Domingo. Y claro, nuestro hermano que se avienta en inglés y español y es uno de nosotros allá in the Center for Mexican American Studies, which is creating quite an impact. You hear him on the radio in the mornings. He's cheering for us. He's fighting for us. Please give a warm welcome, Dr.Jeronimo Cortina. And I'm not going to go home anymore. You're not going to hear me again. I'm going to sit down and let these experts speak. But I got to say this. I got to drop this on you. This is proof that our community, humilde con todo corazón, can do great things. We're taking on something impossible today. We're dreaming big. We've missed this discussion for decades. But I need to depress you a little bit because they're going to cheer you up. I'm going to make you a little sad here. You ready? All right. 10 years ago, Arizona officials banned Mexican American studies. Today, on Cesar Chavez Day, we have to remind our youth who Cesar Chavez is, because they're not teaching them in school.
Right.
And we got to remind people that on our watch, this is not a conspiracy. This happened. There was a law prohibiting our art and culture. We are not saying it can happen. It happened. But we united. We had to become librotraficantes. ¿Verdad? We smuggled those books. Y nos unimos. Y como así, abogados, políticos, la gente política se unieron para rechazar esa ley racista. LULAC is teaming up again with the librotraficantes. We're going back in a caravan of banned books because it's happening again. On April 29th, very happy for Texas LULAC to be on board. Thank you for approving the bus. Thank you so much. Why am I telling you this? Happened 10 years ago. The erasure of our history has been erased, and it's happening again. Seems to be 10-year cycles that this goes on. It's time to break it. I think the people in this room are going to break this. I want to hand the mic over to an hermano, Domingo, who's going to start chipping away at this unfair, unjust rule. And I can't wait till someone watches this in a classroom 10 years from now, and they're going to say, si se puede. Please welcome Domingo Garcia.
Of course, that's hard to follow. He's really a motivational speaker. I've seen him many times. But there's a couple of things I want to remind you of. Recuerdo cuando estaba chiquito, and mi abuelita would say, hijo, si sales a ver en la noche, te va a agarrar el cucuy. Go out outside at night, the cucuy is going to get you, the boogeyman. Okay? And so when I started hearing about the at-large system here in Houston, it was kind of the same theory. If you go after the at-large system, the cucuys are going to come after you. The establishment, los vendidos, all these people are going to come out of the woodwork and say it can't be done. But I'm going to follow up on what he talked about Arizona. Arizona also 10 years ago passed anti-immigrant laws, okay? The first ones in the country. And I also took 2 freedom buses from Texas, and we picketed Sheriff Arpaio's office. We went to the governor's house, La Casa, where she was with, at that time, the VP, Palin was running for VP. And we said, no, basta. And then LULAC in Arizona got together, and we recalled the state senator Pierce. And he was the first state senator in the history of the United States to be recalled, and he was defeated, and he was elected by a pro-Latino. Now, why am I telling you that? Today, Arizona has 2 Democratic U.S. senators, and there's a Latino, Marco Lopez, who's running for governor of Arizona. Okay? And he has a very good chance. And you know what? In the midst of a very tough battle, when everything estaba oscuro and People were being arrested, by the way. Dreamers were being arrested. There was intimidation by the Arizona Patrol, kind of like los hinchas here in Texas. No se rajaron, pelearon. And that's what I am encouraging you today. The statue you saw up there, if you look at the cities across Texas, El Paso, all single-member districts. San Antonio, Benny, all single-member districts. Fort Worth, all single-member districts. Austin, all single-member districts. Dallas, all single-member districts. Who's the outlier here? Houston. Okay? And the result of that is Jose and Maria do not have a voice at that city council. So why, and I always tell, when I go around, because not only did I go to TSU, Thurgood Marshall, but I also went to U of H. I was there and I got a beca de Aslan, when Tacho Mendiola was there. Armando Gutierrez, Lorenzo, they were my professors, okay? So I was rooting for the Cougars, in the March Madness, but they got to the Final Eight. So I know this town. And when I go down, I used to live off of Navigation when I was going to TSU, okay? And there was no curbs and gutters, no sidewalks. ¿Y sabes qué? Todavía no hay in all the barrios around.
Exactly.
Why? Why doesn't that happen in the Woodlands? Why doesn't that happen in Clear Lake and River Oaks and so on? Why? Because we don't have representation, okay? And if we don't have somebody to represent Jose and Maria, then the money will never go there. I'm just going to give you some little brief examples. When I got elected to the Dallas City Council in 1991, which, by the way, we had to file a lawsuit to get a 14-1 single-member district. And we had 2 Latino districts at the time. Today, we have 5 Latinos in the City Council. By the way, we have a smaller population than Houston. Okay? And I'm on the Redistricting Commission, and we're drawing 7 Latino districts. Okay? You have more power here. Nomás se tienen que levantar. Hay un dicho, camarón que se duerme, se lo lleva la corriente. Okay, Houston se tienen que despertar. Got in the café, got in the Red Bull, whatever you need, tequila, whatever wakes you up. Okay? And let the community know it can be done. You have the numbers. What we need is las ganas and a strategy and a plan of action. And what this task force is doing with the leadership of Pablo, Sergio, and everybody else is saying, ya es tiempo that Houston got on the same map as everybody else in Texas. Now, I'm not telling you it's going to be easy. In fact, we've looked at plans, and I know our city attorney's here, but you can amend your charter. And that's what we did in Dallas, and that's what happened across the state. And you can get the votes to put it on the ballot in November of 2023. But we got to get the signatures. We got to get everybody signed up to make sure it's on the ballot, and then we got to sell it. Now, look, the at-large members, they all come from one area. And it's not the barrio areas, okay? It's not the African-American neighborhoods, not the Asian-American neighborhoods. They all come from the rich areas of town, by and large. There's been exceptions. I'm not gonna lie, there are some exceptions, but I'm talking about by and large. And if I remember correctly, Sergio, of the at-large members, I think there's only been 2 Latinos elected. In 30 years, only 2 at-large, Orlando and over here, our city councilwoman right back here, Gracie. That's it. Think about that. That's not representation. That's exclusion. This disenfranchisement. And what I'm asking y'all to look at doing is to create the synergy and the motivation to make that difference in changing how this city is run. This is the largest Latino population in Texas. There are more Latinos in Houston than the entire Rio Grande Valley.
Yeah.
It's all right. So if we can just mobilize and organize, and I hear, well, oh man, no son todos, they're not all U.S. citizens. Doesn't matter. ¿Sabes qué? Well, a lot of them are under 18. Tienen más ganas. Tienen más energía. You mobilize and organize that group. And by the way, I'll just tell you what I did. When I was 30, I was about 28 years old back then, when we were picketing and protesting for a single-member district, we went to the Dallas Symphony Orchestra. Okay? And we picketed outside. We put chains on ourselves that we were involved in the current slavery, okay, with African Americans. Okay? We were on the front page of Time magazine. Okay? We embarrassed the establishment. we took it to them, and we took it to them, and we were at City Hall meeting, after City Hall meeting. I think y'all have started doing that already, okay? And we bring it up, because they're not gonna bring it up, we have to bring it up. And so if we can create a movimiento, then, and the organization and the mobilization, then I think you can win this battle. And by the way, it's not, I see a lot of gray hair in this room. I'm 64, okay? Yo tengo, ya, todas las caras también. We're doing it for the generations that follow us, okay? For them to have those opportunities. Because let me tell you, it's una vergüenza. Yeah, there's never been a Latino or Latina mayor in Houston.
Yes.
Okay? We are the largest ethnic group in Houston. Okay? Not taking anything away from the African Americans or anybody else. I'm just saying there should be one. And if we don't create the base by registering people to vote, turning them out, and then creating the bench, Gracie, because Latinos who are in the city council or are on boards and commissions, they're the ones that can run for mayor. Okay? And they get the experience, they get the training, they get the networking, and that's how things happen. So I'm looking forward to continuing to work. I don't want to take up too much time because we got some great balance to keep. Pero I leave you with this thought. You know, mi papá me dijo, hijo, con ganas todo se puede. If you're motivated, you can do it. So ponte las pilas y para adelante. And I don't know how to translate that.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Dr. Lira and everyone for inviting me. Well, indeed, going now from the, I guess, more academic perspective and about issues of representation. So we know, and there is ample evidence, that moving from our large districts to single-member districts increases representation. We know that. And there is ample evidence to do that and to show that. And also, it's important to have or maintain the bedrock of our representative democracy. So when we're thinking about 45, 50% of the population being of one particular ethnic group or racial group or whatnot, and not having that reflected in our representatives, puts to question a lot of what we're doing here in terms of, do we really have a representative democracy? And by that, I'm not just arguing in favor of descriptive representation, right? Having people that looks like us, that understands our culture or whatnot, because obviously that is extremely important. But also, more important is to have substantive representation. And substantive representation means that the needs, the wants, the preferences of the community are going to be reflected in the policymaking process. And in the policymaking process, at the end, those issues have to be reflected in the budget. It's not about just having a cheerleader or someone that is going to champion, you know, Cinco de Mayo and let's have beer and that kind of stuff. That is important. But the real important thing, right, is to have those needs reflected in the budget. As you know, the city of Houston has a huge budget, right? And obviously, it's going to be a zero-sum game. If you're going to put money here, that money cannot be distributed here. So the representation process and having a members or having single-member districts, right, can increase competition in terms of how that money is going to be distributed. And that's a final prize, right? Representation for something. Because if we fight for representation or having single-member districts, and then that is not transformed into public policies, right? And those public policies have to be negotiated between the mayor and all members of the council, because that's the city charter, right? That's how the city is governed. In addition to that, having, or the legal implications of having our large districts, we saw it a couple of years ago in the city of Pasadena, right? Malta versus Pasadena, that they wanted to do the 6-2 move and become like the city of Houston, having 6 single-member districts and 2 are large. They lost, right? Why? Because the change of process was diluting representation of the Latino community down in Pasadena. Something that Mr. Garcia just mentioned, it's extremely important because we also have, democracy entails that you need to have duties and responsibilities, right? Our responsibility is to participate. Our rights have to be right there, right? We have to have the chance to participate. We have to have the chance to elect the people that we want or a particular community wants. If the vote is diluted or whatever, mathematically it's impossible when you have a large districts. It doesn't work. It's impossible. You cannot have it. So we need to register. We need to vote. We need to show that we mean business and that as a community, we're going to participate in the political process. And participating in the political process means that we're going to take very seriously that right that a lot of people have fought of, right? That right that obviously in every election is at play. Every election is why do Latinos do not participate at higher rates? Why are you not taking it seriously? So besides fighting for these changes that are really needed, and also there is an interaction between our large districts and single-member districts. When you have single-member districts, participation tends to increase because we see our fruits of the people that we want to elect. So it's a double arrow causality, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the important thing is that we have rights, and our right is to have an equal footing. We're not asking for more opportunities. We're asking for the same quality of opportunities. It's not more opportunities, we just want the same qualities and elect the people that we want. From one party or the other, it doesn't really matter. And lastly, we also have those duties. And our duties, we have to take them very seriously. We have to go and register. We have to go and vote. And we have to take La Familia and take them to vote. And if they don't vote, they don't have dinner that day. That's it. So let me leave it at that.
Thank you. I do want to reiterate two very real consequences. No va a haber cena, pero también, let's talk about the benefits quickly because we have two, you mentioned there are two former board chairs from Houston Community College who helped create this campus.
Right. Yes.
It's a very real benefit.
Mm-hmm.
We are here because we're in the castle of the president of Southeast College, Dr. Francis Villagrán Glover. Round of applause, por favor. A very real benefit. Board members put pressure on the right hires who know the community. We're in this room because of her. We got great sound, great facilities, it's a beautiful campus, students feel at home. This is one of these many different benefits that you've mentioned. So I just want to point that out and also thank you so you don't charge us to be in the room.
Thank you. Well, it's a real pleasure to be here. I want to echo some of what Geronimo said. That is a great example of substantive representation. That is interest being directly reflected. I think when we think of Houston, so we have the best way to think about it right now is sort of the stark gap that we saw earlier. A city that's 45% Latino with 6% on the council. 1 out of 16, that's 6% of the council being Latino. And this is a new. This is the second 4-year cycle that this has been the case. It's really a feature of the at-large system. Because you can go back, if you go back all the way to 2001, so since 2001, there have been 45 people elected at large in Houston in these at-large races.
And I think I want to take you back a little bit, so we'll just take a little trip down memory lane. And actually, if you look at where we were in 1991, and you look at where we are in 2021, we're in the same place.
Yeah.
That's how much progress we've made, 0. And the question we need to ask ourselves is why? One of the reasons certainly we know about is city council. How many people on city council are going to raise their hand and say, I give up my seat so that Hispanics can have more representation?
0.
Right. Another 0, exactly. So, Dr. Jones said Sylvester could do it if he wanted to. In 1991, did he want to?
No.
No, he didn't. He said, at-large representation helps single-member districts because you get double service.
Wrong.
So if you get double service, does that mean that we're not going to get any representation? Apparently it didn't, he thought it was enough so that it would outweigh the fact that we wanted to make sure that we did get single-member districts. And there was a push back then to get 16 people, single-member districts on city council. Back then, it was his state representative, who was the state representative at the time, Mario Gallegos. Mario was fighting for that. Ramon Martinez was also in the game at the time, and they both talked about that. When Ben Reyes came in, he did what he could to move towards single-member districts. And actually, y'all remember, Maldef was also involved, Rolando Rios from San Antonio. Everybody was gathering together to make that big push on city council, and that was to get us more representation. Unfortunately, none of that has come through. Is that right, Hector De Leon? And so Hector has the numbers on all of that, and he can show you, there he is back there, that everything that's happened has been based on the fact that we can't get past city council, actually. So the question needs to be brought to the voters. And if we can get city council to make a charter amendment, which we're not gonna get, then we would certainly bring it to the voters and ask them to pass. Now, the other question is, do we have enough support and enough animo and enough motivation in the community to have people come out and support this effort? And that question is still needs to be answered, because even though we are participating more, back then we had probably 9 or 10% voter participation. We are now up to 24%, but is that enough? Is that going to get us across the board? Where are we going to coalesce? Who's going to come out and support us? Are we the only ones out there working and looking out for ourselves, or can we create coalitions and say, you know, we want to be fair, we want equity, we want you to work with us, we will work with you, let's support one another. That's an effort that has been made many times in the past, and so far it hasn't worked. I don't say that we shouldn't try it again, but I guess it would be worth the effort if the leaders were to take it to the other folks. And the thing about filing the lawsuit, if you're going to file a lawsuit, follow through with it. Maldef tried, Maldef did. Brickerstaff was back then cutting the numbers. I personally, when we had this last census report and city council went through redistricting, I personally presented a plan. I know many of you don't know that, but I did go to city council. I did have a plan. I did have a proposal plan to increase representation for our community, and that plan got us about as much attention as all the other things that have been done to city council. So pretty much another 0. But I'm just mentioning that to let you know that redistricting and having more representation has been at my heart, and it is the center of the efforts that I've made to have our people get into better situations, get into greater opportunities, to have more amenities, just like has been pointed out with this particular building. It's because we gathered together, because we had people there who could speak on our behalf and push on our behalf and make the powers that be understand up the much hill that we need these amenities and that we're deserving of them too, because we are members of the community. We're people. We know we have a different culture. We have a beautiful culture. We share it with everybody. Now tell me who went to school and was afraid to show their tacos in for lunch. And now everybody wants tacos, right? Yeah, I had a little brown bag, and this is how we ate our tacos. Okay? Not anymore. So if we can have success with tacos, why can't we have success in education? So I'm like all of you that are in here, all of us are working from our hearts, and we want to give from our hearts and give not only to our families, but our whole community. And we're so driven by the love for our community that we really need to work together in order to get something done. So if LULAC is going to file a lawsuit, by golly, every single person in this room should support that effort. And let's not fall apart. Que esta no puede, que no, que esa no es amiga del otro, no, eso que ese no. None of that. If you're going to do it, do it. So everybody, do it. My mom, I don't know if you guys remember Ms. Navarro. Wherever she would go, she would push the issue for her seniors. And I've had people come up to me and say, oh, Ms. Navarro, da, da, da. She always pushed the issue. That's how we need to be. We need to be like our parents have been and like we should be for our children. And that is, let's push the issue. Push the issue. Don't let it go. Get it done. All right?
That's right.
Thank you so much.
I kind of want to reboot, reset as we get into our next phase of questions. But I believe Yolanda asked y'all a question. She said if something goes down, y'all going to support it?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, fantastic. The other thing she said was about the long term. So I kind of want to reboot, reset right here. So this is being filmed right now. This is airing on social media, Latino Politics and News, and Nuestra Palabra, Latino Writers Have Say. It's a multi-platform broadcast. It's on the Libro Tapica Facebook page right now. I believe Domingo's channel has it going on. I believe the LULAC channel has it going on. I see another camera that I want to give a shout out to. I also want you to know that Valdemar Rodriguez was recording interviews outside that will be saved. I want you to know that this broadcast will also air on 90.1 FM KPFT, Latino Politics and News. The audio version will be on the radio, 90.1 FM KPFT, every Thursday, 3 p.m. We have one show every Tuesday at 11. We have Nuestra Palabra, Latino Writers having their say. This is also aired right now on fox26houston.com on their Facebook page. They're one of our multi-platform allies as well. I'm also happy to be a panelist on What's Your Point, as well as Dr. Lita and also Dr. Jones. Don't worry, they're usually on the right side. Don't worry, the other panelists are not here, but they should be. And then, but here's my main point. My main point is that this is long-term. You know, I know activists in the room. I saw them this morning at the press conference. I see them year in, year out. This is years long. And I know the Lord knows what we're talking about with that. We're digging in. Not gonna be easy. It's a very just cause. We're bringing you the intellectuals, the leaders. We will tweet this to you. I'm gonna send the task force chairs this video so you can review it, talk about it. If you're an any educators in the room, please stay. All right. Yes, educators in the room, please. And I'm happy to help you with any lesson plan that you may need or want with any of this material. And that takes us to our next question. We talked a lot about voting. I'm not going to stand up here and say that Latinos do not vote. No, I'm gonna tell you that voter suppression is real. Here's 2 examples. One, my son is 18. His high school has not come up to him and told him to register to vote yet.
And it's the law. It is the law.
I keep hearing about this law. I keep running into 18-year-olds that are from our community that are trying to get registered to vote, and it is not easy. That's one thing. Domingo mentioned earlier también, a veces a nuestra comunidad les da pena. Bueno, soy de DACA. Well, no, the DACAs are tough. Never mind. The Dreamers, they get involved. Pero alguien va a decir, soy residente permanente, no puedo votar, y se agüitan, ¿no? My dad used to say, se agüitan. We got to mobilize them. You know, they can put up signs, they can volunteer, they can get their relatives who are involved as well. So I'd like to ask the panelists, what are some of their views on how to get our community motivated? The last thing I want to add, I think there's a lot of our community members, they see it all, they watch it all, they don't believe they're going to get benefits. You mentioned that earlier. They don't believe they're going to be helped. They don't believe in the system. So I'd like to throw it to our panelists to say a little, either the formal way, either some of these policies, or what is some grassroots way that we can get people organized?
Look, talking about the at-large, if the at-large members represented everybody in Houston, there wouldn't be flooded areas of Houston. If the at-large members represent everybody in migration, money, and so on, all the barrios, there wouldn't be streets that didn't have curbs and gutters and sidewalks like everywhere else. There wouldn't be, but they don't. And they haven't for 30 years. Now, to me, the way you do it, it doesn't happen overnight, but you gotta do voter registration. You talk about it's the law to register 18-year-olds. Let me tell you what we do in Dallas. LULAC works for our school board president. And we go once in the fall and once in the spring to every high school. But DISD is 78% Latino. HISD is probably about the same. And we register about 5,000 Latinos every semester. And that adds up to about 10,000 a year, every year. We've been doing it. Now, of those 10,000, only about 20% will vote. Pero más y más y más y más. And you overrun them with numbers. And you have to have voter registration all the time. Here at the Houston Houston Community College District, all those students that are here, if you do voter registration drives at all the community colleges where most of our students go to school, you can transform the electorate here. Because I'll tell you what, Bernie and Beto got young people to vote. Okay? The problem is they voted once and they didn't come back. And they don't come back for school board, and they don't come back for city council or for Houston community college trustees. And we got to get them educated so they come out and vote. So that requires that they have candidates they can relate to. And let me tell you what I mean by that. With all due deference to whoever your congressperson is, whoever the mayor, and so on, I relate more to somebody whose last name ends with EZ, Sanchez, Rodriguez, Lopez, etc. And for those of you who are language impaired, okay, the EZ means hijo de. So Rodriguez, hijo de Rodrigo. Hernandez, hijo de Hernán. And for those of you ladies, Sanchez, hijo de Sancho. So, but people relate. So if we gotta have candidates that look like us and they can relate to us. And by the way, sometimes you're gonna lose. Sylvester Turner lost 3 times. He didn't quit. Okay, I served in the legislature with him. I'm also a former state representative. And I remember when he ran the second time he lost. Okay? But it was persistence and perseverance. And that is what we need to do. And it's the long game. There's no shortcuts. It's registering and running candidates. And running candidates, even when they may lose. For example, if we follow a lawsuit, I would like to have a Latino run for all the LRCs, even if they lose. Why? It's evidence. Those are witnesses. Okay? And the same thing happens at every level of government, from the commissioner's court down to the JPs, down to the trustees, etc. So that's how I think you make a difference. You give them something and somebody who they can relate to, they believe is going to make a difference. And some of them do and some of them don't. but we already know what the process and the system, when somebody said, well, they don't believe in the system. Well, the system's failed them. They don't see that it's made a difference. ¿Para qué? No importa what Jones or Smith, no, my life doesn't change. Okay? So we gotta let them know, no, there's gonna be an Hernandez and a Smith. Okay? And you should go vote for that Hernandez. I'm just using that for, the Castro brothers, okay? There's gonna be a Castro on the ballot. Okay? I believe the first Latina or Latino president of the United States has already been born. And he or she might be in this community college, or maybe in LA or Chicago or somewhere. But we gotta open up the doors of opportunity for them by registering, running, and fielding candidates. And don't be afraid to run for office, okay? You can't win unless you get in.
You can't wait unless you have the money.
But the reality is, sometimes I've seen people win that are underfunded. I mean, Tony Busby outspent Turner, what, 4-1 or 3-1? Okay? And by the way, and that happens at local races again. So, but again, if we never get in the race, we can't win the race.
That's right.
So that's what I'm asking y'all to volunteer and run and encourage other people to do so, okay? I ran for city council in Denton, Texas when I was 19. 19, okay? And by the way, my platform was legalizing marijuana, even though I never used it. But I saw the kids that were getting arrested and losing their careers, okay? And that, by the way, that was 1978, okay? Now, I ran, and out of 5 candidates, I came in 3rd. And I endorsed my professor, my history professor, and he got elected. And I tell you that only that story is, everybody can run, it doesn't matter your age. I mean, I remember a young lady named Lina Hidalgo, who came to my office, who was 27 years old, was running for county judge, nobody believed in her. Pero ganó. Okay? Porque se lanzó. She ran, and she didn't care that all the pundits didn't think she could win. That all the establishment consultants didn't think she could win. And that's how we gotta be. Okay? And so she didn't have the money, by the way.
Yeah.
But she got outspent by the Republican, I don't know how much to what, but she still won. So that's what I'm saying. Always, I think that we change elections, so that's how I would encourage people to run.
Just a couple of things, and I'm very much into accountability, right? We have to hold ourselves accountable. And as Domingo said, if we're not having a lot of candidates that win, it's partly because it is our fault. It is our fault that we're not encouraging young people to take these positions. We're not encouraging, we're not preparing them. Being a public official, an elected official, it's not only public service, right? It's a matter of skill. It's understanding how the legislative process works, understanding how to make a point of privilege during the legislative session, understanding how a budget is run, how a city is run. And both major political parties are at fault, right? Because they have not invested in our community. Right now, obviously, right, they see the house on fire, and now they're running and trying to find who's gonna be the next Latino that is gonna run in whatever political party. There was a story a couple of weeks ago in the Texas Tribune saying that the Republican Party is running more women and more Latinos than the Democratic Party. Right? So James Barragan, that works for the Texas Tribune, calls me and says, what's going on? So, well, it's very simple. Republicans have, or they realize that if they want to be competitive, right, they have to open the doors to the Latino community. Our community is more heterogeneous in terms of political preferences than, for example, the African American community. And that's perfectly fine, right? That's perfectly fine if a Republican is elected or a Democrat is elected, that's perfectly fine. The game or the end game is representation. So we have to make those commitments, and historically we have made it, right? You know, just if LULAC or MALDEF decide to go for the legal route, We have the Hernandez versus Texas example, right? Where the community pitch in to pay the lawyer's fees, to pay for the printing of the material. It paid for them to travel to Washington, D.C. It was the community. It was not a big organization. It was not a huge political group. Politics nowadays also, that we have to be very clear about it, it's about money, right? Whoever gets more money gets elected. Running an large campaign is between $500,000 and $600,000 if you want to be competitive, right? You have to have a lot of connections, or you have to have a community supporting you to be able to be competitive in funding. Why? Well, that's the nature of politics nowadays. So we also have to understand those issues, right? And confront those issues head to head. If we're gonna be the big boys and the big girls in the room, we have to be willing to behave as the people at the table and play ball right at that moment. So finally, it's just speaking of turnout, because if I don't say this, Hector is going to kill me later. But, you know, turnout has improved. Younger people are participating at a higher rate in comparison to previous years. There is significant hope to see that, and I see it with my students. They are more politically engaged. They understand, and that's just the natural process of political socialization, right? They understand what are the negative impacts of not participating, because they see it, and they see it every day. They see that in their communities, as Domingo was saying, you know, the lights, the street lights don't work, but they cross the street and the cities work. We see, you know, the gentrification process here in this area, right? The big townhomes, right? And this area is going to change, and fine, it's going to change. But we have to pressure, for example, the city to have, what's it called? To have dual, whatever it is, even though that we don't have zoning laws or anything like that. But those partnerships can be made, right? To have low-income housing with, you know, these townhomes and et cetera, et cetera. But you need a voice that is going to push those issues. So representation, just to finish, is a two-way street, and we have to be accountable at the end of what we get out of the political process.
On that note, are there any folks running for office in the room? Please stand up if there are any other people running for office in the room. Judge Maldonado.
Awesome.
Democratic Texas Supreme Court nominee for place 9.
Talking about persistence. She ran one time against all Republicans, and there was no women, no Hispanics. She ran again twice. Third time she ran again. On the fourth time she got elected.
And you know, Mr. LULAC himself is raising his hand. I'm going to get to Dr. Jones in a second, but Mr. LULAC. By the way, LULAC, as you know, almost 100 years of civil rights work for our campus.
No disrespect to the panel. They did a great job. I like to see the group dynamics we have here tonight. I think the questions will tell us, the LULAC, how high the motivation is, who's gonna sign up for different tests that you have in the questionnaire, because here's where the power is. No disrespect to the leadership, but these are the people that are gonna go get more people to multiply the numbers for the job that needs to be done. Here, I go to a lot of meetings, I hear a lot of hooray and this and that.
Correct.
And then nothing happens.
Correct.
We can't tell it's not voting. So I didn't wanna be rude and interpret.
You did it very politely. You overturned the meeting very politely. But if I may rephrase, Mr. LULAC himself said, this is all nice in theory. You'd like to get questions from the room. And let's be polite to our panelists. Let's get a question for Dr. Jones and then Yolanda. But you're saying, because what Mr. LULAC is saying, Johnny, is saying, that's gonna gauge if there is interest, but he's also putting it to work. Because he said, who's gonna sign up, like Dr. Cortina said, to create, signs like we did back in Hernandez versus Hernandez? Who's gonna block walk? Who's gonna, like you mentioned, you keep mentioning La Lana y La Plata, let's be real. And let's be fair, if you're not gonna donate capital, you need to donate community culture capital. So, how about this, and I do wanna be fair to our panelists, we've got Al, and someone had, a woman had, you had a question. Do us a favor, ask your question, and then we'll go to Al. So can you direct it to Mr. Jones? Is that okay? Y esta va a contar en español, because we had ceviche and vino y se ardiente en español.
So, my background is public ed, and now I'm in higher ed. And one of the things that I've noticed, having been a professor and now being in administration, is we don't teach civics anymore. So what is our plan to teach civics? Where can we teach civics so that our children can learn about the political process, so they can learn about governance, so they can find themselves in that space, because they're eager. Gen Z is eager. They are ready. They are social justice minded. They care about each other. They don't believe in barriers. And we have a great opportunity, but where do we teach civics, since it's not in the K-12 curriculum?
That's certainly, and especially after the most recent legislative session, where there were a lot of efforts for the limited amount that was already there to restrain it. I think for a lot of educators now, it created this gray area where they're not really sure what's legal, what's illegal, and there's a lot of fear, I think, that they're going to do something and then a parent will complain or a student will complain, and that was on the lawsuit. So with that chilling effect, it probably goes to the next level, either higher education or to the community. And that's where just community activists and groups need to play a large role in that. Ideally, it would be done by the schools. The other thing is through the media. That is, the media has the ability to reach people in a way that's free, as well as, it's hard for the younger groups in terms of reaching them. But that's, that would be the principal outreach activity. I just want to add one thing that related to what I think I'm going to reinforce what everybody else is saying. I think the money issue has been a major issue in Houston, and particularly for the at-large seats. And this will be more focused on the Democratic Party. There's, I think, been a tendency in the Houston Democrats in Houston tend to have alliance between liberal Anglos and African Americans who tend to run the show. And I think that has worked to the detriment of the Latino community, which, while representing more people as a proportion, doesn't receive the representation. I think we can trace back a lot of the underrepresentation, at least not all of it, but a big part of it, to that sort of elite consensus to keep those dynamics in place, because it benefits both groups. The groups that will lose representation mostly are Anglo-liberals. That's the group that will lose off first, and then after that, African Americans in terms of overall representation.
And I think LULAC Council 60 President El Castillo had a question, which I'd like to direct to Yolanda Navarro Flores Esquire.
Well, actually, I wanted to talk to Dr. Jones, but I'll ask the question.
Oh, that's quite all right. Dr. Jones is your expert.
Here's the deal. What's Plan B? I want to know what Plan B is.
Well,
yes.
Okay, all right. Let me rephrase that. And this is for the town too. So the lawsuit doesn't work. We have a lot of young people that are interested now, and I think because I think it's incumbent upon them to run for office. But they can only run, or most of them from who we talk to, we meet a lot of young people. They want to run at large. So if we're successful in 2027 or whenever it's gonna be, and we go to single member districts, the young people that want at-large districts would only have to, all they would be able to do is fill out their term, and then they would be right off in the sunset. So I wanna know what's gonna happen to those people. Those are leaders that we're saying, hey, you can't run for at-large because you're gonna be term limited, essentially. I know that was a long-winded question.
I was taking a quick minute here. If past predicts present, they won't be elected, so therefore they won't be in office. That's the answer.
That's true.
Since no one has been elected since 1999 at large as a Latino, that's probably the most likely.
So, but that was good. This is now, we got a lot of smart people coming through.
I think we already had some smart people. I mean, people have tried, it's just the power structure is weighted against them, particularly in these at-large races. I mean, you can have really good people, but it's just tough, and then when it gets to the runoff, you tend to get a lot of the establishment united behind either the Anglo candidate or the African-American candidate, if a Latino even makes it to the runoff, which is rare.
Okay, Yolanda, what'd you say?
Do you know who ran at large in this last city election?
I do not.
I did.
You did?
I did. I came in third place. Money is always an obstacle. Certainly I had a very low budget. But I ran and got third place because my community, my people supported me. And if we can build coalitions, because they're going to support Navarro, Martinez, Rodriguez, Sanchez, we need to build on that. Plan B, there is no plan B. You go with plan A or not at all.
Yes, yes.
To follow up,
The only problem with that is we're in plan A now.
when you're fighting a superior force that has more money than you, you have to fight them asymmetrically. That means you can't fight them head on because you lose. You come in third place, okay? They have more money, they have more votes. So you have to fight them around, below, por abajo, por atrás. You have to fight in essence a political guerrilla war. Okay? You wear them down to attrition. Afghanistan didn't have an air force or a navy or tanks. They still beat the Russians, they still beat the US, and the Ukrainians are beating the Russians because they don't fight them on field, and that's the way you should look at this. So I think we fight them in the courts through litigation. I think we fight them at the city charter level by getting the petitions and putting it on the ballot. And I think you fight them through political guerrilla warfare by keeping the issue alive and creating the momentum. And so people vote for something or they vote against something.
That's right.
Okay? Se tienen que enojar. They hate, La Llorona with the orange hair and the panza and la Casa Blanca back 2 years ago. So they vote against that. Or they vote for somebody. Okay? So you got to give them that. That's how I think we have to look at it in a holistic approach and asymmetrical approach in terms of how you take on the powers. Because he is right. The liberal whites and the African Americans are basically a coalition. And that's why they control Houston right now. And they see us as we're at the kids' table.
We're the expendables.
We're not at the adults' table right now, because they don't see us voting that. And that's how we have to change that.
I agree with Dr. Jones and Domingo. There's no plan B.
No,
And
should
plan
not.
A is very simple, 20,000 signatures to force them to be on the ballot. And then is getting people to vote for that. And the second strategy is through the court system. And there is sample evidence, just 2015 Pasadena, that they simply lost. And there is sample evidence. I mean, as Mark said, you don't need a lot of evidence to show that. 45 races, 0.
I get that. Tony, one last.
Well,
Can you direct the questions from the?
yes, definitely. And let me also put this into context. We only have about 10 minutes left, and I do want to point something out. We're just starting the conversation.
That's right.
We haven't had this conversation in decades. We're telling you the history going 20 years back, 30 years back. This is the beginning of a process where we keep sharing information. I don't want to leave out some of our media allies. Que onda, Garcia, the sponsor did a great event for candidates last Saturday, so thank you for all of that. And also, I want to rephrase and remind you of something that was, a few things that were said for Plan A. So Plan A sounds short, but Plan A está larguísimo because a few things we mentioned. The high schools ain't gonna start registering students tomorrow. I'm gonna call the school where my son goes tomorrow. I'm gonna start badgering them, and I will have evidence to come back and say, ¿Qué onda? ¿Por qué no están haciendo eso? Secondly, we said que ya no les dé pena. Y'all need to run for office. You need to run for office. You ran four times. That's being humble for our community because we keep thinking we're gonna win on that first try. So that's the other thing we left out. And then, so registering the youth, running for office, and this is the first conversation we've had about it. We have to keep coming back. I don't want to leave Mr. Blanco. You had a question. I'd like you to direct it to Yolanda because we kind of cut it short.
I think it's okay a question. I just want to say that I'm with you, Domingo. We complain about no services, nobody represents us, and this and that. Don't forget about this guy. Back in 1996, his name was Victor Morales. With no money and a little small truck, he beat 2 congressmen and 1 lawyer from Houston to get the nomination. With no money, but he everywhere he go where the votes go, where the people are. And he got to Houston, we take it to Rasperias, we take it to Panerias, we took it everywhere. This is what happened. This is what we need to do, all the representatives that we're here. We need to come and face the communities. Come and smell what we smell and they stand. We need to forget about the money. We don't need money. Necesitamos esto. Blood walking. We need to blood walking. Trabajar duro. Porque es cuando se ganan las carreras, trabajar. Y tú lo sabes, Domingo. So, yo nomás les quiero decir, no se intimiden que necesitan dinero. Necesitan ganas y corazón para ayudar a tu pueblo.
Johnny, we took a test for the energy in the room. I believe the interest is high, Johnny. I believe the interest is high. We're really proud of you because we've been in here 2 hours. No one has left the room. Great questions, great panelists. We're going to take one quick question and a mujer has to close the evening. So una mujer va a hacer la última pregunta, okay? And we're going to have a few minutes left. But in that time, we need to network. Where's the chairs? Raise your hand, the task force chairs. You need volunteers then, no? You need volunteers? You need some media people? By the way, hands up to Roxana Guzman, who's one of our producers, and also Rodrigo Bravo. So we're going to take time to mix and mingle, sign up to volunteer for the task force because it's not the last one. And then, so one quick statement, we're going to have a señora close us up. Please give us your thoughts.
My name is Jimmy Leon. I'm with the Network of Mexican-American Inventors and Entrepreneurs. And he's the founder. I'm the co-founder. And I believe you're with Harrisburg Post, American Legion?
Yes.
So am I. So he's a fellow brother of mine. The question I have for this terrific panel is the following, but first I got to mention the legendary Johnny Mata there that I had a conversation with earlier this morning. And I believe we agreed that our voters, they're disgusted with the Democrats and the Republicans. And why do I say that? Because if you look at how many voters we've got in Harris County, you're going to realize that we've got almost 1 million swing voters and about 1 million Republicans and 1 million Democrats, about roughly. That's data from about 2 years ago. So what does that tell you? Look at that data, please look at it. that means that almost 1 million swing voters are disgusted with both parties, period. And the swing voters is the one that is actually choosing the candidate. That's the way I see it. That's my version. Thank you.
So, thank you. Thank you. The question becomes for one of the panelists before we go to our last statement. What can either party do para animar esa gente que, I'm not sure, indecisive, don't see any return, don't see the benefit, any wisdom? This is like a tweet level of wisdom to change the world.
I think it was a statement more than.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, fair enough.
Okay, question.
Señorita, por favor, give us the last words of wisdom so we can walk out of here energized, ready to change the world and unite.
There's too many people talking.
My name is Lisa Pratt Martinez. I was raised in Easton, Houston. I'm an actor in the film industry. One thing that I remember back in the day with Mr. Johnny Mata, Ben Reyes, Mario Gallegos, there was always this unity. And what I would like and hope and pray for is that when we do vote for someone in office, is a Latino, that can they remember who we are, where they came from? You know, can we keep this open and have our backs as we have theirs? Because there's been so many injustices going on in Houston. And it's difficult to have confidence and faith in somebody that we voted and put up there. But, you know, it goes both ways. You know what I mean? We just gotta get together. And like right now, I've been fighting on one case for my loved one, and it's an injustice. It's Pablo Velez Jr. And I just pray that, like, we need Latinos to stand up and step up and use your platform to give back to the community. Because we do make Houston, all of us, all races, you know what I mean? Houston is diverse, but we have to stick together. That's it, thank you.
I want to let you go ahead and ask your question. Go ahead.
I like what the gentleman said concerning Victor Martinez and the white truck.
Morales.
Morales. Me gustó mucho lo que él dijo de Victor Morales, because I still remember that white truck y todo. Me impresionó mucho. Pero lo que acaba de decir de energy, I said to myself, yeah, that is like eating a lot of protein and then you forgot to have the carbs, because without carbs, it ain't gonna work your protein. So you can have every Latino student from college to high school to encourage them to run for office. But from my 44 years in Houston with Latinos trying to get education so that they can run for office, I have noticed that all the Latinos that came from across the border made their millions, made their money, and they are tight in giving the funding for Latino representation to be able to buy some TV advertisement, some boards, some things in the yard while we go block walk. They refuse to let the money into our community. And I would like an answer, why the Latino, rich Latinos, and I could mention several of them, especially in construction, that build George R. Brown y toda esa gente. ¿Dónde está el dinero? Que el latino no quiere meter el dinero para ayudar a nosotros lanzar a correr. Y sin dinero no vamos a poder, ni manejando ni tocando la puerta. Gracias.
Mira, los que vienen de México y de Centroamérica piensan que todos son corruptos, que todos los políticos son corruptos. Porque para trabajar en México tienes que dar la mordida. Okay? And so they correlate a donation with a mordida. So therefore they refuse to get involved in politics because they have a bad taste in their mouth from where they come from. But when you talk to them and you say, you know what, if we have 5 Latinos and Latinas in the Houston City Council, we can get 40% contracts to Latinos. You know what? We can get another Latino police chief.
Yes.
We can get a Latina as the fire chief.
Yes.
We can get, etc. across the board. Okay? But they have to see the return. And it's a one-on-one thing because I've seen it también. Like, look, I'm just gonna tell you, I'm not bragging. I just met Teresa Trevino. I just gave her $1,000. And I'm looking for another $1,000. Because we need to empower our people. You know what? If every one of you, aquí talked about money, dale $25. Give $25, okay? Give $10, whatever you can. All of that helps. I mean, I can tell you that's how Beto and Bernie powered their campaigns. $10, $25.
Yes.
Okay? And there's no reason we can't get Latinas or Latinos to do the same thing. So that's my recommendation.
Thank you. And I did not.
I'm gonna hand the microphone to la señora Mera, who's gonna close this out. And she said she had one last question, like you thought you were off the hook, panel. Here you go.
Because I lived through this, you lived through this, those of us that are 50 and older have lived through this. Why? In 1993, did the 16-1 plan agreement for a city charter amendment did not get placed on a citywide ballot as promised in an agreement to dismiss the Latino lawsuit for single-member districts? Can one of you answer?
You want?
You
Well, here we go. People make promises, and promises sometimes are broken. I don't think we should necessarily call out names, but there were promises made. People didn't follow through with it, and we got
the shaft.
I was gonna say something else, but yes. Yeah. So, we do need to be careful with folks that we work with, and if we're going to get promises and coalesce, work with one another and give each other our word, then we better be people of our word. Keep it. And keep it, exactly, because we may be the only ones that keep the word, and we don't want to get shafted anymore, no longer. Plan A, go forward, let's do it.
Lastly, to close this wonderful meeting, I do expect that we will, as the task force, redistricting task force, will continue with a series of town hall meetings on other issues. This is the first that we're tackling. It's the big one. And once we tackle this, we're coming to HCC. We're coming to HISD. We're coming to Harris County for the JP seats. We're going to be all over the place, and LULAC is going to be the driving force for it.
Yeah.
I want to thank our panel. I want to thank our moderator. And we do have some refreshments for our panel. So please stick around. Yes, ma'am.
I believe we have a survey in your envelope.
Oh, there is a
Please,
survey.
I need you all to fill it out and give it to us before you leave, please.
Yes, there is a survey in there, because if you want to see more of this, please fill it out so that we can take more input and make it happen. This is the beginning of a movement. This is going to snowball. And we, the movers and shakers in this room, are going to make it happen. And lastly, I just want to bring out Mr. Johnny Mata, Mr. LULAC.
Yeah.
To talk about the dedication ceremony of the Joe Campos Torres Plaza. I hope that everybody will attend this as well. Mr. Mata.
I don't have to tell you about the second Flores, the world knows about it. And I like to give credit due. Adrian Garcia, he and I were talking. He said, Johnny, you know they're renovating Buffalo White. There's a lot of money being spent. He said, what could we do for the second Flores? He said, we could do a monument. We could do a lot of things. So As soon as that happened, I said, let me get you started because you need a movement. I did a resolution in LULAC. Then we set up a meeting with the mayor and others. And so there was a space on Austin Street. There was gonna be a plaza named after a person that had died and worked with the Parks Department. We had to convince the city that it should be Jose Campos Torres. We worked with the family, and the dedication is gonna be Jose Campos Torres Plaza and Pavilion. It's coming on the 2nd. Little Joe and the Latin ears gonna, well, Little Joe, whatever last name the guy named. La Familia. Anyhow, there'll be dignitaries from all over, but we're not gonna stop there. The comment that we have to make people understand, after 40 years, Jose Campos Torres' mother is up in age. They're working on a mural on the wall, and a picture and everything. And I think people need to know ahead of time the details, because sometimes we do things, but we don't tell the big story, and I'm trying to make it brief. That building was we had artists and everybody was gonna do it, but we found out that building will be demolished. So we're doing something that will be based on, and that's for another. But last but not least, that's just the first phase. The following is the trail that are called Jose Campos Torres. What I had suggested is, maybe some of you have seen, when you drive in, there's a big brick slab. My suggestion is to do a waterfall with a statue of Torres in a uniform and the water flowing. Because of the trails and everything, it said there's gonna be a trail. Maybe I was told, or were told, that Jose Campos Torres was thrown anywhere in that vicinity, but he actually was found farther down, so there'll be a trail going, it'll be called the Jose Campos Torres Trail. The other thing that is the second phase that we have agreed on is there'll be a pavilion, educational for the children. And Jose Campos Torres, thanks to LULAC and other organizations and everybody, was really the beginning of police reform, maybe in the nation. Because I can tell you, Mamie Garcia was the district director, and others. You had Ruben Bonilla. They started the internal affairs, community relations, and a lot of those things. It didn't work totally, but it was the beginning. The idea is that I've dealt with criminal justice for many years. We're dealing with the last atrocious case, Nicholas Chavez, that 4 police officers were reinstated, and we're gonna be meeting with the U.S. Attorney to have a special prosecutor. We're working with the Congress, because we cannot allow this to continue where our community are assassinated while they're on their knees. Mental cases like that. So let's get back to the Campos Torres. Please go there at 1 o'clock to maybe 3 or so. And it's right on over Austin. There's a county building, a parking lot where free parking will be. And the idea, last but not least, I heard something about Hispanic businessmen and why they give or not. Let me tell you what. How many of you have gone to meet with these businessmen and tell them, we, LULAC and others,
work very hard for you to be successful. You either get government contracts and other things, you need to start investing on the Latinos, because you criticize elected officials, but sometimes they have to compromise for the people that give them the money, and then they're called sellouts. We gotta understand that we gotta do things different. In my years in civil rights, I learned a lot. We shouldn't be turning against each other, but we need to decide who is the real enemy. It's not us. And if we don't do it collectively, then we're gonna hang by ourselves individually. Thank you very much.
Okay, wrap it up. There's one final comment. I just want to say one thing. Is that let's give another round of applause to the distinguished panel here. Let's give a big round of applause to Tony Diaz, the only Latino and mainstream media advocated for our community for years. The only one. Not Channel 2, not 11, not 12, Fox 26, el único. So we also need more representation there. Our university professors distinguished, their resumes are impeccable. Both of them are top-notch professors. Let's give them a hand. And of course, none of this would happen without Domingo Garcia at the helm, leading this fight. One more thing, they'll be sticking around to answer some questions. Y'all take tons of pictures, put them on Twitter and Snapchat and Instagram and all that stuff. But let me tell you, y'all can do a TikTok dance too. But one more thing, let me just tell you, this morning we had a wonderful press conference. People keep asking me, why are you doing this all the time? You, your wives, and so many folks give up so much time, so much sacrifice without earning a penny. Because I can think about our children, the next generation. Those who came before us, the trailblazers are here, sacrificed for us. We're sacrificing for the young folks. Alex, for these guys, and millennials, and our children, and our grandchildren. That's why we do it. The one different thing is why we do it. History is filled with good folks, good Christian folks. When there was times of severe injustices, they looked away. They looked at the injustices. You want me to start with the Native Americans? Slavery? The Holocaust? Many other. History is filled with folks, good, decent, smart people who looked away. But when I look at that, it's wonderful. We can no longer look away. So, together, in the spirit of César Chávez, si se puede y hasta la victoria. Gracias y que Dios nos bendiga a todos. Que Dios nos bendiga. Gracias. Testing. Please fill up your survey and put them on the table on the way out. Please fill out the survey and put them on the table on the way out. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Also, let's not forget Yolanda, the early trailblazer Latina. These are the folks who created opportunities for everyone. Yolanda Navarro, Flores, thank you.
So do you need to, can I take it off so that people can walk? I don't know how to do that. Oh, no.
Here we go.